Mike Bruska, how you doing, man?
What's up?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Guys, if you didn't realize, that's my best Joe Rogan impression. Today, in today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can become, well, basically like the skills and the assets and everything Joe Rogan uses to accumulate his wealth. And we're going to go pretty deep into this topic because it's something that's interesting. And I think it really applies to a lot of concepts of wealth, especially those talked about in that book. You remember we read called The Millionaire Fast Lane?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Joe Rogan, has, whether intentionally or not, taken a lot of principles from that book and, kind of applied them to himself and his life and his business and kind of merged it all into one, kind of done like a nice symphony of things to build his wealth.
Yeah. And not saying that we're Joe Rogan level, but I think he definitely employs a lot of what we talk about. He's using a lot of the same principles that we tell people to do if they want to make money online or I think just be successful in general.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And no, we're definitely not Joe Rogan level. I mean, I might be bald and but that's about it. We both train jujitsu, but that's I mean, you know, it kind of it kind of diverges off at that point. But so I want to talk about just one quick thing from the Millionaire Fast Lane, and then you can kind of take it from there, Mike. So in that book, and I cannot remember the name of the exact like principle that they talk about, but essentially the book gets into formulas where you cannot be using your time to make money. If you're using your time and getting like a fixed rate of return, then you're kind of losing. And one way to get around this is to either have a stream of income that makes money for you when you're sleeping and whatnot, or make your dollar per hour worth so high that like a celebrity status, for example, like Michael Jordan. Obviously, if you break it down, he gets paid well per basketball game or something. I'm not talking about like deals with brands and stuff. I'm talking about like per game, you're getting paid per hour technically, but you're getting paid so much that it doesn't matter. And you could talk about the same with a celebrity and like making a movie and all that kind of stuff. And I think Joe Rogan has a nice blend of both, because what he's been able to do with the podcast and with everything that he does is, so he has obviously sponsors of the podcast that can make him affiliate revenue while he's sleeping. You'll only notice this if you actually listen to the iTunes version, because they don't actually talk about the sponsors on the YouTube one. And then, of course, with the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, he, I'm sure, gets paid a lot of money per appearance because, a lot of, I mean, he is, I guess, one of the foremost experts, I guess, in the field of commentating combat sports, just because, he's participated in them and has a good knowledge base of that. So, what do you want to add to that? Because I know you mentioned a few things that I might not have touched on.
Yeah. So I think a lot of his success comes down to the idea of having a talent stack. And Scott Adams talks about this. He's the creator of the comic Dilbert, has a lot of good books as well. And so yeah, so the talent stack basically means that by becoming, you don't have to be the best at something, but if you can basically acquire like 80th percentile level skills at not just one thing, but several things, then it increases your odds of success basically exponentially. So to give an example of this, so for Joe Rogan, if he was just good at martial arts and he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, if he was just really good at jiu-jitsu, his income would be capped, say, by what he can earn just in the realm of teaching jiu-jitsu and doing seminars, maybe stuff like that. But he has jiu-jitsu and he has good public speaking. He's not the best at either of them. He's not, top 1%, but just by the fact that he has two of those, now all of a sudden he's qualified to do UFC commentary. And so also he has, I don't know if this would be a skill, but he is an open-minded person. So now he has this level of skill set. Oh, now he can do a podcast and interview different people and generate a lot of interest that way. So I think the point is pretty clear that you don't have to be the best at anything, but if you can be decent at several different things, then it gives you sort of a unique blend of skills that you can basically use to make yourself very successful. And a lot of people have done this, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's pretty interesting how he applies some of that open mindedness to different episodes. I mean, certainly there are a number of episodes that like I really don't like the guest, or like he's kind of like really annoying me with what he has to say, because either it's like repetitive, or like I just feel like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But then like he just has such a wide variety of guests on. Like the other day, like 3 days ago, he had like some guy talking about like a strength coach. I can't say the guy's name, but today he's got someone talking about like trash cleanup, and some Dutch guy that invented a machine to clean up the oceans.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
also, sorry, one thing I want to touch upon is that these his diversification of skills essentially allows him to make a lot more money and be a lot more confident in that he's going to continue making money. Because, for example, if he was locked into the UFC as being his main portion of income, then I think he wouldn't be able to be as vocal as he is about like a lot of things, like different drugs and all sorts of things that he has opinions about, and that he's able to sort of talk freely on. He wouldn't be able to do that if his income was basically being held by someone else. So since he has so many pillars of income, that if one goes away because of something he says, it doesn't matter. And so that's something that we talk about as well with, you want to have enough assets in diversified business models that if one goes away, it does not matter to you.
yeah, exactly. And you kind of I was actually going to relate what I was saying to online business. Um, but what I was saying was, because he has such a wide variety of guests, it's equivalent to him. It gives him so much appeal to so many different audiences. So I'm saying, like, even if maybe you hate like psychedelic drugs or something, but like you love UFC, you're gonna watch the UFC episodes, but you're not gonna really worry about the psychedelic drug episodes. And you can kind of tie it back to online business in a way, because say you're building a dropshipping store, you're building a website, and you want this website to be the best it could be. And remember, we're talking about this kind of like on a micro level now. Joe Rogan does this on a very macro level. But on a micro level, when it comes to online business, is like, yeah, you advertise your store using Google Ads, and you're going to capture a percentage of people that way, just based on people's like searching and shopping habits and something like that. And then you do organic search, then you're going to capture the other fraction of those people. So, like you said, yeah, Joe Rogan doesn't lock himself into one area, because if he did, he would be extremely limited. And I think the same goes with your online business, especially with the kind of stuff that we've experienced on multiple times, on multiple occasions, and also have experienced lately, with what happened with one of our not our Google ad accounts, but our what is
AdSense.
it? AdSense. Yeah, like our Ezoic account for some of our sites essentially got terminated. Cover that in a different episode.
Yeah, that's a different video.
No.
But I think it is really something exponential, because essentially he has so much freedom because he has these income streams, that it allows him to be even freer, which in turn makes him more likable, because he can be himself. He doesn't have to worry about sponsorships or one job firing him. And so it's kind of just a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so that's again something that we try to carry over into our businesses, because if we're kind of strapped down in one business, then it prevents us from really, you can say it prevents us from letting the business breathe, in terms of we'll be so focused on it and or so caught up in it that we can't let it settle and grow and observe at the rate that we ought to. And also, when we have more money coming in from different avenues, it allows us to essentially allocate things as we wish.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, your video is a little bit unsynced with your audio. I'm not sure why. It's not going to really change anything about the episode, but if you're watching, sorry about that. I guess it's a connection
Sorry, guys.
issue. But But yeah, I want to go back
Yeah.
to the talent stack for a second because you mentioned that, and I've been talking about it from the perspective of like diversification, which we veered off into. But yeah, that talent stack thing, really is exponential when it comes to business. Because if you think about, if you're at the top level of your business, you cannot be. You have to understand, like, you have to be like the conductor that's conducting the symphony, but you cannot be like the expert in like the violin or whatever, or like the cello or something. Like, you're not going to be the best cello player or the violin player, but you got to know, like, all right, the cello works like this, the violin works like this, and you need to
Exactly.
have like that base level knowledge to be able to do that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Even Napoleon Hill talks about this. He essentially says Henry Ford, who created Ford Automotive, he Henry Ford would say, "Yeah, I don't really know anything about metallurgy. I don't really know anything about chemistry. I know a little bit about them, but what I know best is how to allow all these different people and all these different disciplines to work in harmony." So in Henry Ford's talent stack, he had probably management as some of his best skills, management, business processes, and the actual product that he was known for, he had very little knowledge of. So, if you're a chemist and you're the best chemist in the world, you're not going to make as much money as Henry Ford because you don't have the skills to create a business. You don't have the skills to create a huge enterprise of different, people working in different fields. And that's just how it is. Unless you make some sort of breakthrough that results in a patent, which is a 1 in a million chance. For most people, you're going to be better off getting to 80%, 80% capacity at a bunch of different skills.
yeah, and I think even if you are in that person, if you are that person that's making like a breakthrough in chemistry, you probably do have a so-called talent stack because at least you know where you're focusing your efforts on making the breakthrough. If you don't have any understanding of anything outside of chemistry, like say you were an all-knowing chemistry god and didn't know how to apply it to the real world, it's not going to be very monetizable. And we're talking about making money here. This is the Build Assets online channel. Not to say you wouldn't be a cool person if you knew everything about chemistry, but in terms of like, building income streams, if you are that person that's filing that patent, you have to know, based on maybe some other talents you have from reading or whatever, just being around in the world, you have to know that talent, you have to know why you're doing what you're doing and why you're going to get that patent in the first place, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And just to relate it back to online business, so essentially, I think from having two of us, not to say that someone can't be successful just by themselves, because plenty of people are, but it allows us to have more talents stacked on top of each other. So we talk about how we were doing the dropshipping stores. So we developed the talent stack for Google Ads. We developed the talent stack we put in website building. We developed it for calling suppliers. And then you went off and developed the talent for SEO.
Yeah, let's tie that back
So,
to Joe Rogan a second, actually, because I think you
yeah,
raise an interesting point. Is that, yeah, even though maybe many people see Joe Rogan as kind of like a one man band, he is doing that sort of talent stacking outside of himself, to even further amplify his core expertise. You know what I'm saying? So he's got Jamie on
how
the.
so?
Well, he's got Jamie. Like, he probably Joe Rogan obviously knows a little bit about broadcasting and stuff like that, but he's got Jamie studying all of the details, and I'm sure he compensates him very well to keep up with the latest in terms of the YouTube algorithm
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And then he's got his partners that make the Onnit store or whatever. I'm sure Joe Rogan doesn't know that much about sourcing and marketing supplements, but
Yeah.
he, yeah, he allows other people to work on those talent stacks, whether it's a business partner or not. Is that that's what I'm trying to get at? Is because you brought it up in the context of, like, we're working together on different talent stacks, but you don't have to be in a business partner situation per se. It can even be in an employee
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, if you could develop your personal skills or your just even your hiring and manager skills to a decent level, then you could hire the right person for the job, or you can make the best partnership. But to tie it back again, another topic I want to talk about is Joe Rogan. Before he was a comedian, before he was a podcast person, he was a martial artist, right? And so he talks about the the idea of untapped human potential, and also just the idea of going into the gym every day and training the same thing. Like in jiu-jitsu, how you drill the same moves. You basically are working on the same techniques over and over and over for many years. And this is a skill that people who don't do jiu-jitsu or martial arts really understand, is that by doing the same thing over and over and over, it may seem like you're making progress very slowly, and you are making progress very slowly, but over time, after 5 years or 10 years, your level of expertise is going to be so much higher than the average person. You don't notice the separation happening, but after several years, it's so wide. So that was definitely one of the first skills that he developed, and I would say that is a huge portion of why he's successful, because it definitely gave him the ability to not take failure as much. You know, if you're going out and doing comedy and you're screwing up, you know that you're going to get better at it just by showing up and continuing it. Same thing with the podcasting. If you go back to his original episodes, like he started out, it wasn't even on YouTube. It was on some defunct platform, like, you know, what was it, like Justin TV or something. So he's just improved his skills over and over and over, to where people who see him now, once he's at his full form, it looks like, you know, he's totally professional at it, but he was not. And even in our videos, you know, you could see evidence of this. Like, we didn't really know what we were doing at first. It was just a mess. And now I think we have much more of a process, and we're able to crank out videos at a much higher rate. I think it's more consistent. So yeah, that martial art part of his talent stack, which includes, you know, discipline and just understanding how year over year progress works, is a big thing.
Yeah, for sure. And you already touched on this at the very end of what you were saying. But what I was going to add to that is that, yeah, you mentioned that you have to be very comfortable. He became very comfortable with losing. Or whether, you know, it could, because in martial arts, if you're training it, there's always going to be someone better than you. You know, in class, there's always going to be someone that can, you know, beat you or whatever. And you have to, you know, become very comfortable with the idea of you're going to have more failures than successes. And over time, the amount of successes are going to become higher, but you still always have to be comfortable with losing and like not letting it get to you. And I think it applies, you know, in business, especially because you're probably going to lose more than you win on a micro level, because you're kind of constantly always going to be thinking of things, or let's do this, let's do that. A lot of them are probably going to be bad ideas, or ideas that you're not going to do. But it comes down to, you know, you just have that discipline and the consistency, and the ratio of wins versus losses definitely increases over time.
Yeah. And I kind of lost what I was going to say, but I think also within that area of discipline, like, people, when they get started doing something, they may be more hesitant just to jump in and do it because of different fears that they have. And, you know, they think that they can acquire knowledge before actually doing it. Like, you can't read a jiu-jitsu book having never done it and then expect to beat someone who has even been training for like a few months. You can spend a year reading jiu-jitsu books, but you're still going to get beaten by someone who has been training for half that time. And so now I think we're a lot more disciplined about taking action, and like, we don't really even care about failure unless there's a lot of money on the table, but we won't put a lot of money on the table if we're not confident in it yet. We'll just do it at sort of the most minimal way possible, the most minimal risk way possible, and then fail at it, and then learn from there, and then kind of put in more money and more money until it's a strong sort of area.
Yeah, for sure. And we mentioned this in the previous episode about, people starting out. They always want like some sort of hand holding. And we talked about this before, but I want to touch on it again. Because like you said, hand holding is not really gonna get you anywhere. Because a lot of some of the questions we get, via email, whether it's from our students or just regular people, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, of course, is that you're looking to get a piece of information when you should just go do something and wait for the information to come to you, because really that is the best way to gather information. I mean, yeah, once you have a good amount of data. So, like for example, when an ideal email that we would get from one of our students or someone we're trying to help would be an email that was basically like, look, here's my AdWords campaign. Here's what I've been doing for SEO. Take a look at these numbers. Where do I go from here? That would be an ideal email that's like constructive and helpful, and like we can actually give really, really good advice when it comes to that, because there's so much information that we can go off of. But people, will email instead with like just very, very simple things that would just take them like 30 seconds to find out on their own. And of course, we do our best to answer them in the best way we can, but it's no replacement for that real world testing. And back to Joe Rogan for a second, when he's first filming those first few episodes on Justin TV, I'm sure he's not asking anyone like, is this the best way to do this? Like,
Yeah.
He's not.
Let me look around. Let me no, not even that. There was no one to ask. Should I even be doing a podcast?
Yeah.
There's no one to email saying, "Hey, you think this is a good idea? Should I start this? You think I can this can help me?"
Yeah, exactly. Like, is this going to be successful? No, you just kind of do it and see what happens. And that's really that's the way it goes.
Yeah. And of course he had Brian Redband to have the technology there for him. But even if you look beyond that, he met Brian because he was already a semi-established comedian.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And the truth is, even Brian,
he wasn't as the opportunities present themselves once you're putting the work in.
Definitely. I mean, even Brian Redband, I'm sure his podcast skills developed. I mean, I know they have developed a lot as the show evolved. Like if you look at some of the first episodes, like you said, the first one had like some weird snowflake effect over it because it was like winter or something. And then it evolved to, a studio and all that stuff. And, it just happened because it happened and they were in it and doing it. And that's what it comes down to.
That's it. And really from there, from doing something where he didn't know what the end result was going to be, it generated hundreds of millions of dollars for him from podcast sponsorships and everything else that has come with just being persistent at it. He didn't know what the final answer was going to be. He didn't probably take a course on how you can make $10,000 a month podcasting. He just went in for it and was consistent with it day by day. And that's how he built generational, diversified wealth.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I want to say is I don't think that he ever we're gonna kind of conclude it with this, and because I think this is important to build your life around. Regardless of what you think of, maybe you have a favorable opinion of Joe Rogan and maybe you don't. One thing I think I can confidently say about him is that he's never really like sold out or anything. Like he's changed his opinion on things. And like you said, because he's not worried about, upsetting this person and upsetting that person, but he's never really like sold out to like sponsors or anything like this. Like at least as far as I know. And I think that, if you're going to be getting into business for yourself, if you want to be able to, I guess, like be able to go to sleep at night, you want to make sure that, you're being, I guess, true to yourself, whether you're no matter the circumstance. You want to be able to put yourself in a position to do that. And that's why, when I see some of those like quote marks, like fake gurus out there, like people that are like renting Lamborghinis for the day just to shoot a video of, themselves, like, I think that's not really what it's about. And I just can't imagine
Yeah.
that resulting in long-term success, even though you might get some quick wins here and there, whether it's,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it hits on like the dopamine for a lot of people, but in the end, people see through that stuff. The only real way to win with that is to kind of capture people while they're in that heightened state.
yeah,
But that's really not going to lead to long-term success, because again, people want to see realness. They want to see just something relatable, and that's what Joe Rogan has.
yeah. I mean, unless you're like a total sociopath or something, like it's probably difficult to, like, I would feel kind of
Pull up
stupid.
that image.
Yeah, I would feel kind of stupid. I'd be like, oh man, I just made everyone think I had a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it for this one, guys. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. If you're on iTunes, leave us a review. We really appreciate it. Or Stitcher, whatever podcast platform. Don't forget to grab our free course, the Online Asset Playbook, how you can learn to build an online asset portfolio from the ground up. You can get that at buildassetsonline.com/playbook. And we will see you in the next episode.
Take it easy.